Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday night. End of the weekend is upon us. 9:54 p.m. California time here, February 23rd, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a little bit of movement up into Alaska. Also here on the seismograph stations, been seeing a couple of these spikes there on the Petrolia station in Northern California throughout the day today. So a number of earthquakes coming into the Northern California region. But if you look here on the map, something odd is going on out here across the West Coast, and that is lack of reporting out here. For whatever reason, there are no earthquakes showing up here on the one-day all magnitudes map for pretty much everywhere except for Southern California. Now that just doesn't happen. And I've seen a number of earthquakes on the seismos there on the Petrolia station, probably up around the 1 to 2 range, maybe a little bit bigger, happening up here. Nothing showing up here all day. Nothing through Oregon, nothing along the Cascadia. I find that quite rare that there's not even any quakes being recorded in the Clear Lake volcanic field. That never happens. So there's earthquake activity occurring out here, but not necessarily reporting anything on it. For whatever reason, someone clicked off the switch to halt the earthquake reporting out here across almost looks like the majority of California. And why? I don't know. But Southern California, a little bit of movement down here across the San Andreas Fault and off of it in the last hour. Nothing big as far as 2.5 and above goes. I mean, it's just, I don't know what's going on with these guys, but they're not reporting any of the earthquakes out here. Mount Rainier, a couple smaller earthquakes across this area, and the majority of these all underneath the 2.0 threshold. Not a whole lot going on there. Some movement across the oil fields of Texas. They are reporting those. Quite a few twos out there in the Permian Basin region. A lot of big-time oil fields out there. Outside of Oklahoma City as well. Got some oil fields sitting out in this area. There's quite a few of them actually in these checkered little boxes out there. Looks like maybe some houses out there as well. But yeah, we see some oil fields out there. We see on the map quite a few earthquakes out there in that region throughout the day today. Even one earthquake way up north here into Nebraska. A little odd. 2.8. Not for sure what's outside this region here, but looks like underneath somebody's field. I don't see any oil fields out here, but a little bit of earthquake activity stirring up there today. Nothing big, just 2.8. The rest of the country out here, pretty quiet. Nothing being reported, at least. As far as the last 24 hours of earthquake activity, largest is going to be the 6.0 down here across the Solomon Islands region. Decent sized earthquake here. In fact, I think that's the largest we've seen here in the last week or so. Let's see. Yeah, that takes a chart here in the last 7 days. As far as newer activity around this region, let's go ahead and see what we got for the latest activity. A little bit of further movement across the Indonesia Islands area, 5.2. Papua New Guinea, getting a little bit of bouncing back and forth here between the plate, between the areas here of the plate boundary. That's normally a sign of some high stress out there. EMSC not reporting the earthquakes out here on the Earthquake 3D globe either. So, of course, they get their data from the USGS, and the USGS gets their data from, it could be the Caltech website. Maybe they're having some issues. I don't know, but hopefully they get it fixed, because I can guarantee you there's more earthquake activity occurring on this map than what's showing. Let me show you the tremor map here tonight. This is 200 epicenters of tremor. So when this happens, it's occurring downstream here into the subduction zone of the Cascadia, resulting in earthquakes upstream like we've seen here over the last few weeks. And to see nothing on here but earthquakes showing up on the map, or at least on the graph here at seismograph stations, it just, it doesn't make sense as to why they're not reporting that data. All right, let's see what else we got here across the area. Puerto Rico and the Caribbean plate in general right here has shown quite a bit of strain going on there. 4.9 across this area where that 7-pointer struck here It's been a couple weeks back now. The largest earthquake so far this year, 7.6, outside of the Cayman Islands region. That area having a little bit of, I guess it's aftershock sequences, but I consider this more of a pressurization event here when we see elevated movement around the plate boundary, as the Caribbean plate is showing here in the last 24 hours. A lot of movement here in the Middle America Trench, 4.7 off the Costa Rica area. The Middle America Trench here putting the strain in this little region, a little small plate. It's pretty much bullied around and squeezed and whatnot. There's the Caribbean plate here in the pink kind of salmon color. That, obviously under quite a bit of strain here between the two major plates north and what's going on here across the Middle America Trench. Putting the squeeze here across the Puerto Rico Trench, it looks like, with some threes, even the latest quake, a 4-pointer, directly on the Puerto Rico Trench. So keep an eye on that. That is an interesting area because, it's capable of producing some larger scale activity. You can see it there on the oceanic feature there on that map. Pretty neat. Not so much on these other ones, but all right. Let's see what else we got here across the earthquake 3D globe. Out in the southeast Pacific Ocean there. That's divergent boundary zone, separation here of the plates between the Nazca plate and the Pacific plate here. So we should see a little bit of amplification there across the South America region overnight, and tomorrow it looks like maybe we'll see an increase. Normally takes place following any activity out here in these zones. So watch the Peru Chile Trench over here. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Looks like some further activity out into the Ethiopia Rift boundary. 5.3 and a 4.5 earlier today. Looks like that may have stirred up some further activity up north in the Santorini area, where we're seeing a return of some earthquake activity up there. So let's see what's going on there. See if the Ethiopia station is back online. For whatever reason here, they are offline. So it didn't even pick up the quakes earlier today because the data is missing. I'm not for sure why that's offline, but seems like a lot of stuff is offline lately. Ethiopia, or the Santorini area, seismograph station viewer looks pretty quiet. Number of earthquakes out here today. Looking at 642 earthquakes in the last week. Of course, way more than that if you consider the last few weeks here, probably well into the 13 or 14,000 range in terms of earthquakes. A pair of earthquakes out over here away from the swarm. The latest looks to be a 2.2 or 2.5 around this region. Just a mixed bag of earthquake activity. A little bit of migration here around the Santorini area. They're in that blue flashing circle there for a 1.8. But there was some, that was a 5.1 back on the 18th, so that's still within the week time period. But let's go check out the seismograph station here. See what that looks like today. There's some of the 3-point, they had a number of 4s, I believe, in there as well. At least a couple 4s or very close 4-pointers. There's one, and then a 3.9. The rest, some smaller quakes. But that's the last 24 hours around the Santorini Greece area. A little bit more active today in terms of the larger magnitudes compared to the last, few days. It's been fairly quiet, but still seeing earthquake activity. There's still earthquake activity happening every single day across the Santorini area with no noticeable effect on any volcanic activity and whatnot around the region. Just continue to keep an eye on it, see where this leads to. But I expect things to amplify out here. Looks like something is taking place out here underneath this region, causing the rift boundaries to stir up once again. Mess of earthquakes there across this region. Goodness, that is a crazy amount of earthquakes. Roughly from that 6-pointer westward along this plate boundary, just a swarm of big earthquakes across this area. Up around the Nankai trough, getting some movement as well. Look at that swarm up here across Japan. We got to watch that, because what sits right here is the Nankai trough. That it still doesn't look normal like it used to. I mean, it used to have the names up here. Grayscale really doesn't show it. Terrain, neither. Maybe the street view. Nope. So, but this is a Nankai trough here. I think they're still adding some improvements there. It's still listed up here anyway, so hopefully they add the names of the subduction zones and whatnot around this area. But you can see it on the oceanic crust map. Huge old subduction zone. Not old. Well, it's obviously old, but I'm using the term old, so to speak. This is capable of producing a megaquake, and the last one was back in 1944. And then previous to that, back in 1856, there's segments here that rupture roughly about at the same time of each other, and they normally rupture in sequences here. There's 5 segments. In 1944, I believe the first 1, 2, 3, 4 segments ruptured, and we're still waiting on the 5th one here, but very possible we could see that take place soon with some larger earthquake activity around the Nankai Trough. There's been so much earthquake activity around the region, obviously putting the strain and testing the area recently. So that's a region that the Japanese government put out a megaquake warning for here last year due to all the increasing movement around it. So they've increased the chances of seeing a megaquake on that subduction zone, and there's a whole bunch of activity happening around it. Keep an eye on it. And this out here, like I say, there's just no reporting of the earthquakes for whatever reason. Hopefully that comes into play tomorrow, and they fill back the earthquakes that are happening out here. Nothing major going on across New Zealand for now. Pretty quiet. Globally, though, things are on the uptick for sure. All right, let's check out space weather. A number of decent flares in the last 24 hours. An M flare, and then a more recent X flare, an X 2.0 here from a departing sunspot. It's going to be this flare right here. Very impulsive event. Did not produce any type of CME as far as I know. Well, at least not Earth directed anyway. So that was way out there on the western limb. Beautiful, bright flare. X flare signature right there from sunspot number 4001. That is way off there on the western limb. And maybe we'll see it return here in a couple weeks after it goes around the far side of the sun there. Let's see what else we got. Either way, it looks like we're seeing a little bit of increasing threats. That sunspot area is no longer visible, though. This is not the region that produced the X flare. It's off way out there now. And we're left with a number of sunspots out here, but man, there's not a whole lot of complex ones. Maybe up here, maybe a slight chance for some flaring from this region. Newer area right here. This region looks to be developing a little interesting magnetic complexity there. So we'll keep an eye on them. But right now, no major direct threat in terms of strong flaring activity. Overall flare threat right now shows a 10% chance for X flare, but who knows, this could change here in the coming days. 45% chance for an M flare. As far as any major roars in the forecast, I wish I had better news, but nada. Zip zero. Nothing in the Aurora forecast for now. Storm Prediction Center, little marginal risk up here across Washington and Oregon. Got a very strong low pressure system moving onshore. That's going to kick up. It looks like a little bit of wind potential there for the area around. They're not even showing it. But up here in Oregon, Washington, a little bit. Down in Florida as well. But no mention of the wind threat. I'm sure it does in the summary here, but I'm not going to go through that. So we'll watch this here. Put this into motion. Very strong low pressure system there. Going to bring us lots of rain and snow up there. I wish that was aimed at California, but it's not. We got temperatures here in the mid to upper 70s coming up this week. I guess I'll take it, but I would like to see some more rain out here in California. Looks like that may come into play as we enter into March. March can be quite wet out here, and it does look like there's going to be a number of storm systems that impact the West Coast as we enter into March. The total accumulated precipitation runs quite awesome in my book here. Looks like we're going to get a bunch of rain. I hope this rings true. I hope it doesn't change, but we'll see what happens as we enter into March. Either way, the pattern looks good. Fingers crossed it stays that way. And we'll see what happens here. I'm not against seeing a few more inches of rain before it hits 115 degrees. That's just what happens out here. Here in the Sacramento Valley, a.k.a. Big Death Valley. Not the original Death Valley down in Southern Cal, but the Sacramento Death Valley, so to speak. No fires. Why did I click on that one? I wanted to check the windy map out here. Show you guys this big old windstorm up in the Seattle area. Going to have some super strong winds coming in. Check this out. Developing low pressure system here. Let's put this into motion a little bit. There it is, deepening low pressure trough here. Area of circulation, bringing in some very strong winds. These guys haven't seen this strong of winds in quite a while. So it's going to be a pretty large event, and well inland as well, with some hurricane force type winds up there. Beautiful. I love it. I love just standing on the ocean out there, not on the ocean, but on the beach, the coast, and seeing the wind come in. That's just me, though. I'm a weather guy, and when there's wind and storms, you'll find me admiring them. Massive low pressure out here. Goodness, looks quite active out in the Pacific. So I think we'll be seeing that rainfall play out here as we enter into March for California. All right, nothing showing up there for California still. It's giving them a chance to report that earthquake we've seen on the seismos here a few minutes ago. But, yeah, I mean, nothing's being reported. Not even the daily earthquake activity that occurs there across the Clear Lake volcanic field. So last one was reported on the 22nd. So we'll find out tomorrow, see if they get back to normal operations or not. In the meantime, folks, have yourself a wonderful evening. Monday morning is upon us very soon here, so got a pretty busy day tomorrow. We'll catch you guys back out here in the morning for the start of the work week. Have a good one. Stay safe out there.